You know, it feels like everywhere you look, especially when you're building a business, it's all about the metrics, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Data dashboards staring back at you.
Pitch decks just overflowing with projections.
Yeah, and there's this sort of underlying promise, isn't there? That if we just analyze enough, use the right formulas.
What can unlock the secret? Like, we can actually code our way to the next big thing.
And it's such a human thing to want, isn't it? That desire for a blueprint, a predictable path.
Makes sense.
Venture capitalists, understandably, want to cut down the risk. Investors want some kind of assurance.
Everyone wants to know how to copy past successes.
Exactly. And that fuels this whole industry, right? Consultants with their frameworks, incubators with their programs, all selling this idea of control in what's, well, fundamentally pretty uncertain territory.
Absolutely. But today we're taking a bit of a different angle.
Okay.
We're diving deep into this really thought-provoking argument. It comes from an excerpt called #SmallBusiness, Why Entrepreneurship is Not a Science.
Interesting title.
It is, and it basically argues pretty persuasively, I think, that even though we try so hard to systematize it, to quantify everything, entrepreneurship just doesn't really fit neatly into that scientific box.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to really unpack that.
Yeah.
Why do we have this impulse to treat it like science? And maybe more importantly, could that be leading us, down the wrong path?
Exactly. And what really drives those big breakthroughs, if it's not just the numbers, we want to offer you, the listener, maybe a different way to look at business success.
Sounds good. So where do we start, that initial pull towards the science of it all?
Yeah, let's unpack that first.
Yeah.
Why are we so drawn to treating it like a science?
Well, like the source says, and it makes perfect sense, the allure of certainty is just incredibly powerful, especially when there's, serious money on the line.
Right.
Investors need signals, something to gauge potential return. Metrics seem objective, right? Tangible.
And the consultants?
They provide the methods, the frameworks. It's just a clear path, step A, step B, step C.
And institutions are always looking for ways to replicate success, foster growth.
Exactly. Replicable models are the dream.
It really feels like we have a key performance indicator, a KPI, for absolutely everything now. Market size, TAM, CAC.
LTV, churn rate, burn rate.
Traction, even that kind of fuzzy one, founder fit.
And look, these metrics aren't useless. They can give you valuable snapshots, show you trends, tell you about the health of the business now. But, and this is the crucial point the source makes, they only give you a partial picture. They're okay for past performance, maybe current trends.
But predicting real disruption or completely new markets.
That's where they often fall short. Think about a startup with a really low customer acquisition cost. Sounds great, right?
Yeah, looks sufficient.
But what if their churn rate is through the roof? That low CAC doesn't mean much if customers aren't sticking around.
So the single metric looks good, scientifically precise even.
But it masks a bigger problem. A purely scientific focus on isolated data points might totally miss that.
That's a really good point. And the source uses some great examples to illustrate this, like Airbnb.
Oh, yeah?
Early days, the whole idea, staying in a stranger's home, that was a huge leap for people.
You have to imagine those initial projections. What could they have possibly shown?
Probably not global phenomenon, right? It must have seemed incredibly risky based on any standard metric.
And yet, it completely changed the game in hospitality. Or think about people paying to watch other people play video games.
Twitch, yeah. Seemed niche, maybe even silly not that long ago.
And now it's massive. Multi-billion-dollar industry. It shows how concepts that look odd on paper can just explode.
The source mentions others too, like Spanx or WhatsApp, Patagonia.
Right. Businesses that probably wouldn't have passed the standard due diligence tests in their infancy. As the source says, and I love this line, great businesses are rarely obvious.
That really hits home. They often come from somewhere else, don't they? An unexpected insight, a need nobody saw.
Or just this weird combination of factors that, no spreadsheet could ever predict.
So, okay, if it's not just the numbers, what else is going on? What are the key things driving these extraordinary successes, according to the source?
Well, it pinpoints three big factors that seem to operate, largely outside that quantifiable data world. The first one is persistence.
Okay. But not just working hard?
No. The source calls it an unreasonable willingness to keep going, even when the evidence, the metrics, maybe everything is telling you to stop.
Unreasonable willingness. That almost sounds like defiance.
Yeah, maybe. It's about those founders who just slog through years of obscurity, failure, doubt.
When maybe the rational, data-driven decision would be to quit. But hang on, isn't there a danger there? Like, how do you tell unreasonable persistence from just being stubborn about a bad idea?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's tricky. Often, it seems to come down to this deep, almost gut-level belief in the core vision.
Okay.
But crucially, combined with an ability to actually learn and adapt. It's not just head down, ignore everything. It's commitment to the problem, even if the solution needs to change along the way.
Right. Resilient commitment. Okay, so persistence is one. What's the second factor?
Timing. And this one feels slippery because so much of it is outside our control.
Yeah, you can have the best idea ever.
Exactly. The most amazing product.
Oh.
But if the market isn't ready, or the tech isn't there, or the culture hasn't caught up, it just sits there.
And the flip side?
Maybe, less than perfect product launched at just the right moment can absolutely take off. I remember reading about some early social media platform, brilliant idea.
But too early?
Way too early.
Yeah.
Before smartphones were everywhere, it died. Years later, something similar, slightly different, hits when the tech and people's habits are aligned. Boom, unicorn.
Wow, that perfectly illustrates it. Timing feels like this X factor, part intuition, part, well, you hate to say it, but luck.
Yeah, the source doesn't shy away from that. It even says a bad idea in 1999 might be a unicorn in 2024, just because the world changed around it. Tech, behavior, trends, everything shifted.
Which leads nicely into the third factor, doesn't it?
It does. And this is the one that probably makes the purely scientific approach most uncomfortable. Chance.
Randomness. Luck.
Pretty much. It's acknowledging the huge role of just unpredictable stuff. That unexpected meeting that turns into the crucial partnership.
Or a random tweet goes viral.
Or massive shifts nobody saw coming, like a pandemic, suddenly creating totally new needs, new markets overnight.
It's kind of unsettling to think how much luck plays a part.
It is. But if you look at the stories of major successes, these chance events, these unpredictable moments, they're woven all through them. Good luck, bad luck. It's part of the narrative.
And you absolutely cannot model that.
Nope. No way to factor in serendipity or sudden behavioral shifts in your spreadsheet. It resists quantification.
Okay, so let's recap. We have this unreasonable persistence, the unpredictable nature of timing, and the undeniable role of chance or luck.
Right.
When you put those three together, it really does start to feel less like a science, less predictable, and more like, well, the source suggests it's closer to art.
And that analogy, I think it really works. Art needs instinct, right? Intuition. You have to be willing to experiment, to learn by doing, iterate.
It's not about following a rigid formula.
Exactly. It's about exploring, getting feedback, adapting, creating something new. And really innovative entrepreneurship, it shares those qualities.
Yeah, I like the analogy. It's like a chef, maybe. They know the basics, the techniques. That's your data and strategy.
Right.
But the real magic, the innovation, comes from trying things, tasting, seeing how people react, the market response, and adjusting.
That's a great way to put it. That iterative process, driven by feel and adaptation, much closer to building something new than just following a recipe step by step.
Okay, so if we accept this idea that trying to make it too scientific can be problematic, what are the downsides? What happens when we over-engineer it?
Well, one big risk, the source points out, is creating filters that are just too narrow.
How so?
If we get too hung up on certain metrics or perfectly polished pitch decks, we might just dismiss really original ideas because they don't fit the mold.
Or they don't project growth in the way the models expect.
Precisely. And we might also overlook founders who are maybe unconventional. They don't look or talk like the last successful person, so they get filtered out, even if their idea is brilliant.
It feels like we could end up valuing polish over potential.
That's a real danger. How well you tell the story becomes more important than the substance of the idea itself.
So the great storyteller gets funded over the person with the truly game-changing insight who maybe isn't as slick.
It can happen. And this whole system can then put pressure on entrepreneurs, right, to tweak their vision, maybe fudge the numbers a bit, just to fit what they think investors want to hear.
Which could dilute the very thing that made it special in the first place.
Exactly. And the source argues this ultimately stifles real innovation. It ends up rewarding conformity, not originality.
We risk losing that sort of essential spark, that creative core of entrepreneurship. The source really emphasizes that the truly world-changing stuff often starts small, doesn't it? More personal.
Yeah, like a hunch, or a deep frustration with something, or just intense curiosity about a problem nobody else is seeing clearly.
Things you can't easily quantify.
Right. They don't usually pop out of a market analysis report. They come from someone wanting to solve something real, explore something fascinating, build something new.
And they're often following a path that just isn't obvious to anyone else yet. Driven by something internal, not just the external data.
Which leads to another really interesting way the source frames it. Entrepreneurship as sense-making.
Sense-making, meaning?
Meaning, it's not about applying a fixed formula. It's more like an ongoing conversation with the world. You put something out there.
You see what happens.
Observe the reaction, listen to the feedback, good and bad, learn from it, and then adapt. Adjust your course.
It's this constant loop of experimenting, learning, pivoting.
Exactly. Shaped by intuition, but informed by real-world feedback. The source calls it a dance, not a formula. I like that.
A dance, not a formula. Okay. But let's be clear, we're not saying data and strategy are useless, are we?
Oh, definitely not. Not at all. Throwing out all the tools would be foolish.
Right.
Data, strategy, analysis, they absolutely have value. They provide crucial context, help you make more informed choices.
But the key is how you approach them.
Exactly. With
Yes.
humility. Understanding their limits. Use them as tools for learning, for experimenting.
Not as instruments of absolute control, trying to eliminate every unknown.
Because you can't eliminate every unknown. Trying to do so might just mean you miss the biggest opportunities.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway? The core message we want you, the listener, to consider?
I think the biggest thing is just caution. Be cautious about trying to force entrepreneurship into that rigid scientific mold. It's just too complex.
Too many variables.
Too many variables, too many nonlinear paths, and the very nature of really big breakthroughs. It makes prediction and strict systems incredibly hard, maybe even impossible.
We definitely need to measure what matters, learn from the past, no question.
Of course. But looking ahead, it's crucial to remember that next truly game-changing business, it might not make any sense on paper at first,
And the person who builds it.
might not look or sound like your typical successful entrepreneur profile, at least not until after they've succeeded.
So maybe we need to protect that space, the magic of it.
I think that's what the source is getting at. Appreciate that entrepreneurship is also this realm of surprise, creation, human possibility. Maybe the best stuff has to defy the models.
So a final thought for you listening. When you're looking at a new venture, or maybe even your own ideas, how much weight are you giving those things you can't easily measure?
That gut feeling, that crazy persistence, that sense of timing, even if the spreadsheet looks a bit weird, it's definitely something to think about in this whole fascinating world of business and innovation.